Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to welcome you to the 2025 National High School Design Competition Judging. My name is Louisa Hardigan, and I'm the manager of school and family programs here at Cooper Hewitt Smithsonian Design Museum. This year's design challenge was inspired by our current exhibition, Making Home, Smithsonian Design Triennial. It features installations from designers and their collaborators that explore and expand the idea of home today. We challenged teens to consider how they might use design to make their communities feel more like home for everyone. It was so inspiring to hear the care and the innovation that students proposed bringing to their own communities. You can see all the finalists and honorable mention entries online, and I really encourage you to check those out. So now I'm thrilled to introduce our finalists presenting today. First, we have Jazmin Abasto-Ruggeri, a junior at Cuthbertson High School in Waxhaw, North Carolina. Next, we have Erin Hong, a sophomore at Sunny Hills High School in Fullerton, California. And finally, Advika Kala, a junior at North Carolina School of Science and Mathematics in Durham, North Carolina. In a very impressive pool of 633 entries submitted by 961 students from 24 states, their designs really stood out, and they deserve kudos for all their hard work. The competition is now in its 9th year, and it wouldn't be possible without our partners. Our gratitude to Adobe, the Hirsch Family Foundation, the Coyne Family Foundation, and Siegel Family Endowment for supporting the National High School Design Competition this year. Their investment enables us to nurture the next generation of designers and innovators. A very big thank you to our wonderful judges for being here today. And next, I'd love to invite our judges to introduce themselves. So I'll turn it over first to Cooper Hewitt's director, Maria Nicanor, and then you can feel free to pass it to the next person on your screen.
Thank you, Louisa, and welcome everybody who's online and will be watching, and to all of the judges and our wonderful finalists. My name is Maria Nicanor. I am the director here of Cooper Hewitt Smithsonian Design Museum. We are the National Museum of Design of the United States, and I'm calling today from our museum here in New York and Fifth Avenue, and I'm very excited to welcome everybody and spend the afternoon together going through the presentations of our 3 finalists. I want to thank our judges, Omar Nobil, Jules Sherman, Liz Dansico, and Ainsley Romero. They've been working with us in the past few weeks and months to select this final 3 finalists as well, and serve as mentors for them too. They come from a background, a very diverse set of backgrounds of design, which is always helpful when we're looking at, as you heard from Louisa, over 900 entries from across the country, which is an impressive number. Advika, Erin, and Jazmin were handpicked from an enormous group. So you should feel very proud of yourselves, and we're very excited to have you here today as you present. And I think you're already winners, all 3 of you, for having made it this far. And I'm looking forward to an afternoon together. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to the judges, but not without saying too that this is one of our favorite programs at the museum. I always say that, and it really is true, because we do so many things here. We do exhibitions, we do public programs, we do events, but this competition in particular points towards the next generation of designers. You are it, the 3 of you, and all of your colleagues who presented entries. So it's an opportunity for us to also invest time and resources and intellectual resources and just like general camaraderie and generosity in sharing ideas, so that you can make it to whatever the next step is going to be for you. So it's a beloved program at the museum, and we cherish it very, very much. So with that, maybe I'm going to pass it over to Omar to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Maria. Hi, my name is Omar Nabil. I'm the creative director for Design Within Reach. We are a furniture brand, and we're part of the Millenol collective. Very excited to be here. My background is largely in fashion design, and now also in the world of industrial design. I'm going to pass it over to Liz. Thank you.
Thanks, Omar. Hi, I'm Liz Danzico. I am the Vice President of Design for Microsoft AI. Microsoft AI builds responsible AI to empower people. So we look at the intersection of AI and human-centered design. I'm also the founding chair of the MFA Interaction Design program at the School of Visual Arts in New York, and have had the privilege of seeing a generation, can I say, of people kind of go through the program to advance their careers. Thanks so much. I'm passing it over to Jules.
Hi, my name is Jules Sherman. I'm the Biodesign Program Director at Children's National Hospital in Washington, D.C. I work on medical devices for the pediatric population, and I'm also an adjunct professor at the University of Maryland's Bioengineering Department. And I'm so excited to be here today to learn more from the finalists and enjoy the presentations. I'm just very excited and honored to be here. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Ainsley Romero, and I'm a graphic designer and art director at Pinterest. And I come from a multidisciplinary design background spanning graphic design, illustration, and spatial design. And I hold an MFA from the Yale School of Art, and super passionate about design education and programs like these that support ways for students to explore design thinking in a way that's considering their community and how they live their daily lives. So super excited to be here as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all of our judges. And now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Jazmin Abasto-Ruggeri for her presentation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jazmin Abasto-Ruggeri. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm honored to present my design project, the Haven Plushie, a therapeutic stuffed animal that delivers comfort and care to hospitalized children in a way that no medicine ever could. I'd like to begin with a simple but powerful question. What if the safety of home hugged you with more than just physical warmth, but emotional warmth? Well, my Haven Plushie is the answer to that question. Let me tell you a little bit more about myself. I'm a rising senior at Cuthbertson High School in Waxhaw, North Carolina. And as you can see from my pictures, I love expressing my creativity through design and visual arts. Ever since I was a little girl, I've enjoyed drawing anything from portraits to landscapes to animals. And it was my love for creativity and the support of my family that helped carry me through one of the hardest experiences a child can go through. When I was just 8 years old, I was diagnosed with leukemia, which is a type of cancer that attacks your white blood cells. Now, before I even got a diagnosis, I spent 2 long years moving from one cold hospital to the next, enduring unexplained fevers, stomach pain, and above all, a deep aching homesickness. During my treatment, I learned firsthand that hospitals, while life-saving, can feel very isolating. The metallic smell, the fluorescent lighting, it's just nothing remotely similar to my warm bedroom. Even today, this is the reality of hospitals. Now, children spend months, even years in these types of situations, far from the people, smells, sounds, and feelings of home. So my experience with cancer inspired me to design something for children going through the same journey, a companion that could wrap them in the warmth of home through the 5 senses. Before I dive into my design, I want to address the mental struggles faced by cancer patients and survivors alike. According to the Pediatric Research Foundation, 75% of diagnosed children experience PTSD symptoms during or after treatment. It's time we broaden our perspectives on treatment options to improve the situation. Beyond simply addressing the concept of home, this plushie challenges traditional medical approaches to healing. It's time we recognize that healing is much more than just a medical process. Healing is deeply emotional, mental, and sensory as well. So my design idea is called the Haven Plushie, which is a multisensory stuffed animal that encapsulates a hospital-bound child in their own unique at-home experience. I decided to design the Haven Plushie in 2 different animals, as you can see, a bear and a bunny. As you can see on the slide, each plushie contains 3 unique comforting features that simulate an at-home experience. All these features can be controlled through the Haven Plushie mobile app, which I'll discuss a little later. So let me briefly walk you through the features. So first, there's a digital photo player. Built directly into the plushie's stomach, this photo player allows children to view photos and videos of loved ones, family members, and pets, all from their hospital bed. These pictures can be easily uploaded to the digital photo player through the Haven Plushie mobile app. The bunny and the bear Haven plushies feature textural patchwork fabric on their stomachs, providing children with a comforting sensory experience that helps ground the child and also soothe their anxiety. The bear plushie features a star-shaped patchwork, while the bunny features a flower-shaped patchwork. And these also mark the spots for children to experience the scented stomach, which is available in lavender and mint scents. These aromatherapy scents have been clinically proven to promote relaxation and also energy. The built-in speaker in the plushie's stomach plays music that the child can associate with their culture and also their home life. Even more special, family members can upload voice messages to the speaker through the Haven Plushie mobile app. Finally, soft LED lights located at the feet of the plushie display a warm glow that almost resembles a child's nightlight in their bedroom. As you can see, this is the Bunny Haven plushie, and it features a speaker, the sensory patchwork and scented stomach combo, and then also the LED lights at its feet. And then this is the Bear Haven plushie, and it features the sensory patchwork, scented stomach, the LED lights, and then it also features a digital photo player. To illustrate the three-dimensional structure of my plushies, I created two distinct axonometric drawings. In both plushies, the scented stomach pouch is integrated directly into the plushie stuffing, and then for the bear, the photo player is also built in, but is left exposed at the front. And that's also the same for the speaker and the bunny plushie. And then for the LED lights, they're built into the feed directly. Now, let me give you a quick tour of the Haven Plushie mobile app. This app allows the plushie to be controlled by friends and family in one central, convenient place. Beyond that, the Haven Plushie mobile app's fluidity and language translation helps extend the reach of my Haven plushie to an intercultural and international level. So as you can see on the home screen, in addition to accessing the Haven Plushie website, there are three options for you to choose from: My Lights, My Speaker, Settings, and also some quick actions at the bottom. So that includes turning the lights on and off, and then also playing sounds. In the My Lights, you can turn the lights on and off. You can also change the colors, and then also adjust the brightness of the lights, and then also apply patterns. And then under the speaker, under the music player, you can change the volume of the music that's playing. You can also pause and play the music that is playing. And then you can also apply some quick sound effects, such as giggle and roar. And then you can also browse your music library. So it's compatible with Amazon Music, with Spotify, anything like that. And then under record messages, you can record a voice recording. And then under My Recordings, you can actually play back the recording once you're finished. And then under Settings, you can rename your plushie. You can also reset the light settings and also the audio settings. And then you can also access parent resources for any additional FAQs about the Haven plushie. So my goal is to create an experience between the Haven plushie and the Haven plushie mobile app that benefits not only children with cancer and their parents, but also children with Down syndrome, with autism, and even with severe anxiety. And as you can see, my sociograms show that. And on this slide, you can see an example of how an experience would look like between the app and the Haven plushie. So as you can see, the parent is changing the colors of the lights. And also changing the brightness of the lights. And changing the patterns, so now the lights are in a fade setting. And then in the My Speaker, you can see that the parent can play the music and then adjust the volume. And then under record messages, the parent is going to record a voice recording. And as you can see, once a parent finishes recording a message, they can name it whatever they'd like. And then here's a quick little sample of a playback on the Haven plushie, on the speaker of it. And then here is an example of an experience of how a child would experience the scented stomach. And then for the speaker portion of the video, that was actually my mom recording the message in Spanish, which is actually our home tongue. And I decided to have her record in that language to show again that the Haven plushie can be used by families of all different cultural backgrounds. So when I initially started my design process, I set out to design a pillow with all these unique comforting features. But after deciding to target kind of a younger age group, I shifted my focus to creating a plushie. And then drawing from my own personal experience, I know that hugging a plushie, especially with my mom's voice in it, would have definitely comforted me and also made me feel less alone. Originally, I envisioned creating a single Haven plushie with a built-in humidifier, projector, the scented stomach, and also the LED lights. But after, I ultimately decided to split all of these features into two different plushies, and then also head towards a route that would avoid complications with mold and also any camera heating. While designing, I also decided to make the plushies and also their patchwork all neutral colored to promote gender inclusivity. My Haven plushie integrates multisensory experiences and emotional connections to transform the hospital environment, offering a sense of home to the children who need it most. I hope we can transform the meaning of healing in home and something that goes beyond the four walls of a house and the strict steps of a medical process. By getting in contact with personal sources that I have cultivated in St. Jude Children's Hospital and also Philadelphia Children's Hospital, I know I can provide that for children. Thank you for listening. Any questions?
Thank you, Jazmin. That was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Luisa, guide us. We have a little bit of time for questions now, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Super. Well, I'm happy to get us started. I mean, you didn't leave a stone unturned, I think, in all the aspects that you considered for this. I am first so sorry that you had to go through that experience, but also so grateful that you turned it into such a positive outcome for so many more than you. I say this having just spent some time in the hospital with a family member, not a kid, but these are all thoughts that I've yearned for solutions, I think, in my time there, and you really went through all of the aspects. Maybe let me just ask one quick question that came to mind. Like, how were you thinking that you would introduce, you mentioned some contacts that you have in hospitals, but like, how are you thinking that you would introduce your designs into the hospital community? Or are you seeing these products in some way as products that would be sold to families, or are you thinking of the hospitals as the ones who would then be the distributors of this, which implies that they would need to buy into your philosophy first, right? Like, how are you thinking of that? How do you think that would work?
Yeah, so I think first off, I would most likely get a patent for the plushie and get in contact, like you said, with the hospitals and try and figure out a solution for how I could kind of distribute it to the parents and the patients at the hospitals. So it would really be working with the hospitals and also working with Ronald McDonald, which is an organization that provides families that have children in hospitals with housing. So that could also be a very viable option for me to start distributing this plushie to those families. And ultimately also maybe growing into maybe a social media platform. So that could also be something that if anyone who maybe didn't have children presently in a hospital but are looking to maybe um, let their child kind of experience it, that could also open it up for maybe the business side of the Haven plushie.
Thank you.
Right. So thank you so much, Jazmin. That was such an inspiration, and I appreciate hearing even more about it. I have a question about learning, and I was delighted to see how you're incorporating different family members and friends through the use of the app. So you have a community in the hospital, you have the community connected to home, and then you also have this community, it seems, through using the app. I'd love to hear how you came to that decision of including more people and what benefits you think it might bring, and then some of the complexities that you've considered with having multiple people using it, or and how you're kind of considering those challenges.
Yes. So in terms of why I decided maybe to expand the reach is I think that it's not only kids with cancer that are affected by this sort of isolation, it is a broader spectrum of children. So I think it's also important to kind of display that because it's very important for all these children to obviously feel like they can still grasp home even if they're not physically in it. And I think some complexities maybe is maybe just kind of how I could best like tend to these children's different needs. Because I know I can only speak from my experience, but I know that if I wanted to better tailor the plushie to kids with autism and with anxiety, maybe even other disorders, that could be something I could look into. So I could maybe have some families that have children going through those types of situations, maybe have them set up a quick interview with me, maybe get their input on how this Haven plushie could be better made to suit their child's needs so it could fit, a broader spectrum of children.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Hi, Jazmin. This is Omar. Well, congratulations on this incredible submission. Such an extraordinary story you have personally, and like Maria said, it's amazing that you took that adversity and transformed it into your own creative expression and design thinking. I also really loved how you abstracted this the normal idea of community that we tend to sort of connect to a very specific place or location, and then you've abstracted it to just groups of people centered around a child's life. So I think that's really amazing thinking and exciting to see that thought process. Um, there is you're very much focused on these children's needs who've been somewhat who are very much an unconsidered part of these children's needs who are going through this quite traumatic experience. However, this design seems like it could be quite joyful and a connector for any child, honestly. It's a really interesting um, way for bringing different people together in a child's life. How have you thought of it as something that is just generally available?
Yeah, so I was also thinking into maybe producing one that was more targeted towards maybe the elderly. So I know from my personal experience with my grandparents, they love looking at photos of me and my brother. So that could definitely be a viable option for me. I could look into maybe designing a plushie that is more focused on the visual aspect of like the home experience instead of maybe integrating all the senses, just focusing on just the visual aspect.
Love that idea. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Jazmin, that was a wonderful presentation, and and also so impressed with how you took adversity and turned it into something so positive. I can empathize with that, and because I've been working in children's hospitals for the last 10 years or so. I see that need firsthand, and so there's so many things about this that are so wonderful. One of the thoughts I had while watching your presentation was similar to Omar, was, parents who have to leave their children in daycares also may be interested in this as a consumer product so that they can comfort their child while they're at work and feel like they're able to somewhat communicate with them during the day. Another thought I had was, ways in which you could sell something like this. I mean, you could go at it, from a consumer perspective, of course, but you could also look at platforms like there's this new platform called Peds Market, PEDSMRKT, and they sell things specifically for children, medical devices and other kinds of accessories that aren't FDA cleared, but for children's healthcare on their platform. And it's out of Kansas City Children's Hospital. And I know the folks there who launched that. And I just thought, gosh, this might be really interesting to offer on that platform for parents and for also clinicians. There's a group, as you probably know, in children's hospitals called Child Life. And you probably know all about Child Life. And they help kids in all kinds of ways, but they might find this kind of product to be useful in managing mental health and of the younger pediatric population going through myriad things in the hospital. I can think of so many. So congratulations on this wonderful project. I very much related to it, and I think it's wonderful that you thought about so many of the touch points around it and brought that to such a high level of resolution. It's so impressive.
Thank you so much. And thank you for that insight. I will definitely look into that.
I just wanted to add to all of the wonderful things everyone has been saying. I especially was touched by the finding that you presented, that healing is more than a medical process, and kind of that starting point for your idea. And you did such a beautiful job of going through all of your iterations and how you came to decide on the different features that the design would include. And it made me curious about all of these recordings, or these almost the sort of record that this plushie could hold of these recordings or these memories. And I was curious if you've thought through a place where that data could live or could kind of be stored as something to remember or look back on, or like just almost that sense of home that this design is creating, like how that could continue on in a way, almost like a yeah, I just thinking of these recordings. I know I have like recordings or voicemails on my phone of like memories from different times of life, and I wonder if you've thought through where might this data go as a child grows up, and if there would be a way for them to access that later on.
Yeah. So just thinking about that, I would most likely design the plushie to have like a little hard drive input. So when the messages are recorded, they kind of like save into that little hard drive. And then maybe you can plug it into a computer. And yeah, the kids can then look back on it or rewatch them or re-listen to them and kind of remember those feelings that they were feeling. of comfort and the plushie just helping them. And then beyond that, maybe also through maybe social media presence, there could be a way to I could find a way to also link those messages maybe to the social media platform so you feel like those memories and those messages can live on there, and also that's an opportunity for other people to also experience other people's sort of experiences and also feel more like a community.
Well, thank you again so much, Jazmin. I don't know if there's any other questions from the judges. No, I think we all got a chance to. As you saw, we didn't question your design. We were just thinking of how to push it and launch it further. I think that says a lot of like what a great project it is. But thank you so much again, Jazmin.
Yes,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you so much, Jazmin, for that really fantastic presentation. And now I'd like to welcome Erin Hong to present.
Hi, my name is Erin Hong, and this is my project, the Postcard Exchange Box. I'm currently a sophomore in high school, and I've always grown up and lived in suburban Orange County, which is in California. And I have always loved being a part of my community, whether that be writing for my local newspaper or volunteering. And this is my original submission, and I created this postcard exchange box to address disconnection in communities and to allow everyone to feel comfortable in their own home. And in general, American society, loneliness and social isolation is increasing, and 1 in 5 Americans feel disconnected from the community, according to the American Psychological Association. But rather than just share statistics, I want to give you a glimpse into my world. So this is my neighborhood, which is majority elderly, and so you can't find any kids playing soccer in the cul-de-sac. I have a work-at-home dad who spends most of his day inside and only leaves the house to pick me up from school. And most importantly, everyone is driving instead of walking, which means that there's more distance between people compared to, say, like New York City. And this is actually reminding me of something I learned in AP Human Geography, the term the distance decay effect. The further apart people are, the less they interact. And the reverse is true too. When we're closer, like in busy cities, we naturally connect more. And this is my house, which looks pretty similar to a lot of other houses. And I am among that 50% in America that reside in a suburban area, according to Bloomberg. And here's a street in my neighborhood, and as you can see, there's no corner store or local coffee shop to casually bump into someone. You have to go out of your way to interact. And but the purpose of my exchange box is, number one, to strengthen connections within communities. And although my community is not broken, I just feel that it could be strengthened. And number two is to bring back those low-tech activities and to experience being in the present. And there's something so special about a handwritten note that we don't experience much of this these days. And recently, I went to a local park and I saw a little library, which made me realize that my exchange box and the little libraries have a similarity. They are both impacted by technology since everything is now accessible on our phones. Little libraries are being built as little library budgets are being cut due to ebooks being able to be downloaded from anywhere. Just like that, due to texting and emailing, receiving and sending mail has declined by almost 50%. And I made my box to address this problem. This is my updated sketch of my box with new features, the sides of the roof to look more like a house and doubling as a way for 2 people to ride on it, as well as a crank that plays a song to add music as well, and more postcard options. And these are the steps. So first, you pick your postcard, you write your little message, you send it, and then you crank it and then at the end, you get to receive your own. As we look on the inside, as you crank as you crank it, the gears allow the letter to travel down the conveyor belt as well as play the song, then is flattened in case of any folds or curling, then put into the stack of the other postcards waiting to be received. And at the end, there's a little take one dispenser. And to keep that working, another important factor are the moderators. Similar to how little libraries are run, who are volunteers that are willingly to maintain it, to regularly check and ensure safety, making sure no inappropriate writing or other things than postcards are in it. As the moderators will vary for each location, it also varies for the exterior look. For example, it would look like houses in my neighborhood, as you could see in the drawing. It could also look like, if it was an apartment building, that box would also look like an apartment building. And some surrounding additions that may increase socializing are the chairs for people to talk and have conversations. And I want it to feel not just a place where you could return physically, but emotionally too. And also footsteps that lead to the box with a little mat that says welcome home. And this is what you might see when you walk up to the postcard box. First, a QR code to scan for the website for all the places that the box are located, as well as a place for feedback and requesting new location. A unique stamp or rubbing, which is unique to each location, which acts as a way to encourage users to go around to each and every location. And lastly, the instructions. With my idea, I decided I wanted to figure out what my community thought and my neighbors thought of my idea and the problem I chose to address. So overall, I interviewed 5 residents in my neighborhood, and all in common, they said that we are disconnected, but not because we are unfriendly, but because we have not had the proper opportunities to do so. And they all thought that my idea, the postcard exchange box, would be a great opportunity for people to connect with one another. And because we have the potential to build a warm and inviting neighborhood. And these are the ones that stood out to me the most. Resident number 2 said that we're mostly an immigrant community in Orange County, and people from the same country are more connected among themselves. And I'm from India. We would know almost everyone residing in the town, but not in the US. Resident 3 said, as a longtime resident, I could definitely say that this community lacks the connected aspect of what a neighboring community should look like. And she has never seen a community event. And personally, as a resident here for 10 years, on Halloween Day, there's no trick-or-treaters or decorations. And Resident 5 said, I think our community, our neighborhood is somewhat detached because everyone always seems busy. And where else could the box be located? It could be anywhere from the sidewalks, airports, markets, parks, cities, libraries, schools, anywhere, any place where people are gathered. And with that, I wanted to list some potential locations besides thinking of my original location, which was the cul-de-sac at the end of my street. And I placed the box as if that's where it would be located. And first, the suggested spot in the neighborhood was suggested by the people I interviewed, which is in the middle of all the amenities. And I also thought maybe next to the little library that I saw in the park, because they kind of serve a similar purpose. As well as Barnes and Nobles, where students from my high school, we always walk down to go study there, and it's pretty busy with customers. And the city library, which reaches out to a wide range of audience. And last but not least, Trader Joe's, which I personally think is the perfect place to start off and gain community attention. And not only is it busy all day, but it is welcoming and has that farmer's market feel. And here's some examples of what you can write on the postcards. So it could be from anywhere from recipes to song lyrics, quotes, and affirmations. or just a heartfelt letter, and even a drawing. The idea of sharing your kindness speaks to others and may make someone's day, and tell the receiver that there is someone there, even if it is anonymous, that there's someone who loves them and they are not alone. For example, if you're having a bad day and you come up to the box and write an affirmation, it's a great way to practice positivity, and you will feel the same effect, like it bounces right back at you. And the feeling of home is the feeling of being included and loved, which I strive for with my box. And my design development, before I started off knowing what the purpose was for and the audience who it was responding to, and however, I didn't really think that well on the mechanism and the details and that much of the individual traits of each box. However, afterwards, from gaining feedback from Mentor Weekend and my community, I definitely got more insight onto how to view the box as if the user was experiencing it, by increasing more locations, adding more postcard shapes, and definitely working more on the mechanism on the inside and how it works. And my process started with empathy, thinking about how isolated people feel, not just me, but others in my community and my dad. I sketched out a bunch of ideas, as you could see on the right, before landing on this one. And I made more sketches, and then I tested it by getting feedback from my mentors and my neighbors. Definitely during Mentor Weekend, I added things like the crank system and improved it overall. And I'm really excited to launch it, and I hope to reach out to the mentors after all of this to help me bring my idea to life, so I could help people feel a little more at home in their hearts. Thank you for listening. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Erin, very much. I'm going to see if any of the other judges have any questions. They want to go first?
I'm always happy to go first. Erin, congratulations. What a tremendous project, what a tremendous idea, especially at this moment. There were two things that stood out with your submission and also your presentation, both serendipity at this moment in time. It feels like we're in a serendipity desert, or serendipity is disappearing because of how planned everything becomes, because of the tools we have available to us, and how available information and services are to a certain group of people. And so the serendipitous nature of the messages seemed so absolutely wonderful and refreshing. The second piece was, and serendipity, by the way, has a nice business impact. Steve Jobs famously had designed the opening entryway of the Apple headquarters so that people would physically bump into each other to have better ideas. You may know that story. So it actually has interesting business implications too, so serendipity and positivity. But the second was the handwriting or art or poetry aspect, and the sort of multi-sensory aspect that you've designed in. Handwriting itself creates a way of, both handwriting and the art that you mentioned, a way of understanding some depth to someone that we don't normally see or hear from others. And so that was, I think, intentionally special thing at a time when handwriting itself, for those who are able to do it, is disappearing as well. And last, I just wanted to say the musical crank, I just thought was such a wonderful, joyful addition. And I noticed, as you said at the end, that was something that you added most recently. And so my question is, could you talk about your decision to add the musical crank and how that came to be, and what you, how you see that sort of change, maybe from neighborhood to neighborhood or box to box?
Yeah, so I actually, when I was, because at Mentor Weekend, I mostly worked on like how it works and definitely like, yeah, the crank system. It was like more of a side kind of addition because it was I was originally thinking of like Jack in the Box kind of thing where like you crank it and then you also you hear a sound. So like contributing to those individual traits, it could be like if it was like in my neighborhood, it could sound like birds in my neighborhood, or if it was like somewhere else, sound it could be like different to each location.
Mhm. Nice. Great. And it gives you the opportunity to align yourselves not just with the places that you said, but also maybe music venues or
Oh
radio
yeah,
stations or other things you can sort of push on the music aspect too. So thanks so much.
thank you.
Hey, Erin, congratulations. What a lovely idea. And I loved Liz's reflections and observations on it around serendipity. I love the touching on this idea of the hand cranked and also just the handwritten nature. I love the analog feel of this. It feels like a
Mm.
prop in a Wes Anderson movie or something. But
Oh yeah.
was all of the very sort of, and I actually really love that you're talking about localization. And when we think of these ideas and all of our ideas right now, I would say in the industry, localization for experience is a huge part of how we think about our business. Um, was this idea of it feeling sort of anti-tech in a way? Was that as deliberate or that this very analog feel?
Yeah, because as I was like thinking about it, like I wanted to bring like activities because now everything's on our phones, and I just feel like it's always best to do things like in person and feel like you're experiencing things in the present and not just on your phone all the time. And I just thought that this would be like I was actually planning on um bringing like a like phone aspect part of it, but I wanted to trace back to my original purpose that I wanted to keep this like low tech and analog.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Omar, maybe I'll piggyback a little bit on what you said because I was thinking similar things, and part of the what I liked about your presentation is that you started very big. You started talking about some problems that are distinctly American, I would say global, universal problems. You talked about loneliness, you talked about the issues of suburbia, and the importance of density in cities. You talked about library budgets being cut. You talked about people's busyness. And I think those are large problems, but then you brought them to the local of your neighborhood, right? With the voices of the people who were around you, but you're thinking in like in this big way. And I thought that was important. You're considering what's happening in the world around you and bringing it back to your experience. So yeah, and love the serendipity factor, and the fun factor is always important. And then I actually had a practical question about how you would encourage in-person interaction. I understand that the project creates empathy and gives this sort of like, warm feeling of getting a note from someone, but you might not meet the person who wrote that note that you're getting, right? So
Mhm.
how are you thinking of that, or is it a step that you would want to make in the project, or is it enough that someone just receives a note, an empathetic note, they are someone from your neighborhood, and is that enough? But I was thinking like, oh, maybe I'll put my email in the note, or maybe I'll put my like, how do I make the next step? How are you thinking about that?
Well, I was thinking about like considering like if it needs to be like anonymous or it should be like, like someone leaves their name and they could maybe even be friends or something like that. But I just thought maybe like the power of it being anonymous is like the beauty of it. Like it's like you won't know who it is. It's like random acts of kindness that you won't come across them again maybe, but it's just that feeling that a stranger could give you that kind of kindness and you receive it from someone else as well.
Got it. Thank you.
Hi, Erin. Congrats on this beautiful presentation. I wanted to just say that something that struck me about your presentation, looking at it before today, and then as you presented, was how you illustrated, like literally illustrated your idea. And I think that that captured not only like the technical details that you worked through with your design, but also just like the feeling of the idea and the spirit of it. And it was so colorful and expressive in the way that you illustrated it. And that really stood out to me. And I was thinking about how this experience that you're designing is not only offering something that is harder to come by these days, of having these more like intimate interactions with people in your community, but also a moment to be creative, to do something with your hands, to write or to draw, which also some people might not have that part of their daily life as much. And I was curious if you've thought about different ways to test this idea with maybe having a prompt or a question or some sort of entry point that could guide someone to interact in a specific way if they see the design and they're intrigued, but they don't know where to start, or maybe they haven't had opportunity to be creative in that way, or it's just something where they want to participate but they don't know what to write. Like I think your design would lend itself so well to so many different ways of testing it. And I'm curious if you've thought through the idea of a prompt, or to specifically to not use a prompt and have it be more serendipitous. And yeah, curious about that part of the project.
Actually, I didn't think about like the prompt thing. That's actually like a really good idea because but I was just thinking of maybe putting those ideas of like, oh, you could write like a song, lyric, poem, recipe like on the instructions so it could give them ideas of what they could write. But I'll take that idea to mind. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also I really like that idea too that was just discussed about the prompt. I think that the directions are good, but it would also be interesting to have the volunteers perhaps put different prompts there somehow integrated so that people might have an easier time of thinking about things that they might want to share. I really enjoyed your presentation. I also really loved your drawings and the way you presented your work. And one thing I'd really like to call out that you did such a wonderful job on was your research that you conducted, that you really folded in this idea of co-creation with your community. And that is something that I do a lot. I work a lot with other people in the community of the hospital. And that is so important to do as a designer because you end up being, like a conduit for the feedback that you get. And already doing that and having that intuition at such a young age to do that is so strong. I just wanted to point that out. And I was really impressed with that. And then sharing what the feedback was excellent. I was also thinking about, uh, like what's the next step for this because it's so cool. And how can you prototype something, what would be next? And I was thinking about this would lend itself so well to like a Wizard of Oz type prototype. Do you know what that means?
No.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know what that means, but it's like, like a method where a user interacts with a simulated system, but it's controlled by a person. So it's sort of like puppeteer, So somebody goes through the motion of, writing something, and then somebody inside the box is like, pushing something out to them. And then you can like film that person, and somebody on the outside of the box could film that person's reaction to the message. Um, and get more kind of hands-on feedback, if you had like a full-scale cardboard prototype that you put somewhere in a park or on your street that people could actually use. But I was thinking that could be a fun next way to actually test this, right?
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be funny. Yeah.
If you Google Wizard of Oz prototypes on the internet, on YouTube, you'll find some very creative ways people simulate technical projects, but like in a very manual kind of a way. And then the other thing I was thinking about was this would be such a cool project for, I don't know if you've heard of Magical Bridge Playgrounds. They're now national. It's a national playground built by the Magical Bridge Foundation. They create playgrounds, parks, specifically for more to be more inclusive for children who have different kinds of abilities, right? And this type of thing I think might be really fun to put into a playground like that. Not just for the kids, honestly, but for the parents, because parents of children who have children with special needs are often feeling very lonely and isolated themselves. And I think that this is a great way for those parents to be able to do something at the playground while their kids are playing, right, with each other. They can also feel a sense of community through something like this. I mean, this is really interesting. If you're interested in sharing this project with the people of this organization, I know the founder.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was just thinking she might really love it.
I think, yeah, that sounds really great. Yeah. Please, yeah, let me know afterwards.
Yeah, I will. I will. But great job. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erin, so much. I think we might be moving on to our third and last, maybe.
Yes, I just want to say thank you, Erin, for just a fantastic, wonderful presentation. And last but not least, I'd like to now welcome Advika Kala.
Yes, wonderful. Well, good afternoon. I'm Advika Kala. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina, and this is my design, The Resilient Home. Now, as I said, I'm from North Carolina, and I've spent so many summers and breaks in a charming little town called Chimney Rock, tucked into the Smoky Mountains. Though only 140 people live there, its heart is huge, welcoming over 400,000 tourists a year to its state park, festivals, and places like the Village Scoop, which is my personal favorite ice cream spot. But being away from home in boarding school, I've learned home isn't just your physical walls. It's the people, the memories, and the stories. Chimney Rock still is kind of that home for me. So when Hurricane Helene hit in September of 2024, I, along with the nation, was devastated. The storm claimed over 100 lives in North Carolina and destroyed half of Chimney Rock's properties, much of it just due to aging infrastructure and worsening climate threats. It became one of the state's worst natural disasters in recent memory. Now, a recent CNN article talks about how mountains are undeniably beautiful, but they're becoming one of the deadliest places to live because of problems like Hurricane Helene. It's estimated that around 1 billion people live in mountain communities, as they're just drawn to this natural beauty. So this kind of led me to the question of how do we rebuild disaster-stricken communities in a resilient way so something like this doesn't happen again? So the answer to this is my design framework, which rebuilds mountain homes in a resilient, sustainable, and culturally respectful manner. First, let's start off with the research that has fueled this design. I've talked to a plethora of people and have kind of informed my design and my relationship with Chimney Rock. When I first visited Chimney Rock after the storm, the town was completely shut down. I had to receive special permission to enter for the purpose of this project. The damage was absolutely devastating. Storefronts I loved were boarded up, trails were washed away, and the riverside homes I remembered were gone. Then I met with Shane Zokol, the head of Spokes of Hope, who is pictured on the screen, a volunteer-based rebuilding group. His team is not just the helping hands, they're giving back home to Chimney Rock. For them, rebuilding isn't just practical, it's communal healing. I then met with the mayor, who invited me to participate in the town's unveiling of the rebuilding plan and to share the design I've been working on. So I returned to Chimney Rock on June 4th to participate in this meeting, where I engaged again with the mayor and the lead architects from Destination by Design, the planning firm guiding the town's redevelopment. Together, we reviewed the master plan called Raise the Rock, which is currently focused on the economic development and strategies like pushing buildings back from the river and using permeable ground materials to control floodwater. I provided my own written comments to further the design plan. But what I learned from this is that the town's housing development stage is still forthcoming, and they appreciated my design could contribute and have an impact on the overall master plan. And these are kind of some of the renderings that will be in the future of Chimney Rock. Now I'm going to present my design in our past, our present, and our future. To understand what's at stake, I went backwards. I spoke with two of my history teachers that have specialized in American history to help contextualize the cultural layers of the land. Long before Chimney Rock was a tourist hub, it was home to indigenous communities like the Catawba Nation, known for their pottery and circular dwellings with rounded roofs. As you can kind of see in the pictures, there's this gathering space in the middle of each circle. Remember that shape, contributing to the idea of a very community-style living. The Catawba had this specific ideology called the seven-generation mindset, which emphasizes considering the impact of decisions 7 generations into the future. This is kind of their way of resilient thinking. European settlers brought stick frame houses, pitched roofs, and more gridded town plans, symbols of individualism. These two geometries, the circle and the grid, kind of came to show the contrast between the two architectures of Chimney Rock and define the tension between American architecture. Now, my goal isn't just to choose one or the other, it's to honor both of them. That's why my design blends circular floor plans from indigenous traditions with more A-frame roof silhouettes from settler heritage. Now, moving on to the present. We're currently in the design phase, and this is when my framework begins to take shape. The structure of my board follows a journey map, a path the community takes to rebuild. The first panel is design. It's supposed to symbolize the design work and the collaboration it takes to build a town. The circular table is meant to symbolize the Catawba idea of a very collaborative community. The second panel shows construction. I learned from Catawba labor practices that every single member of the community works together. Every single person has a tangible impact on their home and their town. So when implemented, this is built off of community collaboration. The last frame is supposed to symbolize when this design and these structures are unveiled to the rest of the world. And it's supposed to celebrate every single member of the community because everyone helped out in their own way. Now, let's talk about the key design features and these 6 aspects displayed. First, we'll start off with our cultural memory. Cone roofs, circular floor plans, and rounded structures draw directly from Catawba architectural traditions, embedding indigenous values of environmental harmony and communal space into physical form. Rounded roofs naturally promote airflow, regulate interior temperature, and reduce material waste. Circular layouts centralize gathering and distribute structural stress evenly, making them both culturally resonant and structurally sustainable. Now for familiar form. Rectangular buildings, A-frame roofs, and colonial stick frame construction reflect the more recent architectural history of Chimney Rock. For longtime residents who return to this rebuilt home in the future, we don't want a completely new landscape. Familiar silhouettes help them feel more at home. The A-frame roof in particular provides strong wind resistance and effective snow and rain deflection, practical traits that have helped it endure in mountain regions. By incorporating these more familiar forms, the design doesn't help erase the past, it reframes it with more adaptive framework. Now on site adaptation. Raised foundations and stilt-supported structures minimize flood damage by responding directly to Chimney Rock's terrain in updated FEMA flood zones. This approach draws from the town's lakefront vernacular and the June 4th discussion on keeping the structures set back from the river. Complementing this, porous and pervious ground materials advised through Destination by Design enhance water absorption and reduce runoff, transforming the site into a living sponge that lightens the load off of the infrastructure while restoring ecological function. Now let's take a step into these buildings, the interior layout. The interior layout was kind of made in keeping in mind of how do people flow in a space, modeled by the red arrows. When designing this, I was really thinking about the idea of indigenous dwellings, where there are kind of circular centers where people come together and they meet in the center. So in each of these interior layouts, I've kind of made sure to include a space where people can come together within a home. So what are we going to use to build this? 2 examples can be seen by taking inspiration from the pottery traditions of the Catawba and the absolute abundance of red clay, North Carolina. And so the red clay concrete mix also kind of can be used with lime, and then also rammed earth comes from these ideas. Now, the idea of using materials from the earth is respectful, and if it was returned to earth, it's not harmful to the environment if it was destroyed or taken down once again. This is the process of making rammed earth, and it comes from indigenous technologies from around the world, and it just hones in the idea of borrowing and respecting cultural ideas and taking respect for the land. To materialize my design, I devised a model plan of different ideas of possible models. Now, my design has a lot of different components and a lot of different mix and match kind of features, so it wasn't easy just picking one. But here I 3D modeled an example building in the software Rhino, and as long as a framework piece from cardboard to just show like the tangible impact of kind of my framework that I've been talking about a lot. So when we ask about the future, we're not asking about what it will look like, but how will it really live on? And I want it to live on in these aspects. So what are we going to do now? I want to build for resilience, integrate with the Native American culture, and respect the environment. I also learned from the mayor about the creation of long-term recovery groups. And these are community boards who are made out of civilians who are deeply interested in kind of the rebuilding process. And these people are people who remain long after nonprofits depart. So in times of need, suppose another natural disaster, these are the people who are going to directly reach out to nonprofit groups and governments for additional assistance. And this kind of future thinking is all about community resiliency, apart from kind of the structural and material resiliency we've been talking about. Now, I want this design to transcend this first sight. It's a framework, a philosophy of recovery that can be adapted across disaster-stricken mountain communities. To talk about how the design has evolved, it has come from this to this. And it's transformed into a more theoretical, symbolic kind of way of looking at architecture and rebuilding spaces, and it's become something that's more invested into the process of how we're going to take it from the site to the building and the inner details of design into something that could actually materialize. The innovation is a new approach to rebuilding disaster-impacted mountain homes that integrates design elements, including architectural principles, culture, and materials in a unique way. Now, when I met with Mayor Peter O'Reilly, he introduced me to the Destination by Design leaders. They actually really enjoyed my work and my design and invited me to show my design to a group of North Carolina University professors who are going to be the future architects of Chimney Rock. This actually allows me to actually implement my design and my framework to have an actual tangible impact on the rebuilding efforts of Chimney Rock, which is really exciting for me and for the town. Now, if you're continually interested in Chimney Rock and would like to donate, here's a slide for you. But bringing this to a close, my design framework is an innovative approach to rebuilding disaster-impacted mountain communities. It honors the cultural heritage of the land, is resilient against future disasters, and strengthens a heartbroken community. Its impact encapsulates not only the people of Chimney Rock, but other geographies impacted by climate change. This is more than a design. This is a promise to restore a sense of home to communities, from bringing the hopeless to hopeful. Now, I want to give a big thanks to everyone on here who has kind of mentored me and given me so much guidance in this process, including my parents who have absolutely supported me through this all. And I thank you for you guys for listening in, and I'm opening to some feedback and questions now.
Thank you, Edwika. That was fantastic. I've been to many architecture school pinup sessions, and I can tell you that you're up there with third and fourth and fifth year students in the way that you just presented. So well done. It was very clear. You've laid out your methodology, your strategies, the challenges you're addressing. And I was very impressed that you've included policymakers in your process, because that's really the way to go through these projects, right? So it sounds like you've done quite a bit of research there and included and inserted yourself in positive ways into the process as well. So I think that's really quite something. Can you tell us a little bit more? Maybe perhaps I was interested in your layouts and how you brought together the layout of and that's where I think you're headed straight to architecture school, your beautiful drawings of the floor plan of your buildings, and where you mix the round indigenous wisdom shape with the A-frame sort of grid and like the assumptions that you made there. how do you think you would introduce those floor plans, even in a community setting, where people are trying to gain back their homes and like wanting to have back what they wanted before, perhaps, as you said, familiar things. How are you thinking of the process of presenting something that is maintaining tradition, but suggesting something new too?
So one thing I really learned about my activities in Chimney Rock was that in honor of like kind of protecting it from natural disasters, they're moving a lot of buildings away from the river that runs through the area. So that would unfortunately mean taking away some homes from the river and placing it somewhere else. And this kind of gives the opportunity for buildings like this to come into place. It's a way of reinventing how people go about their land. And I think we've talked about how familiar form is incredibly important. And there will be obviously be people who will like to stick to their A-frame houses and like to stick to this kind of familiar way of architecture that defines the region. So to address people who want to kind of move forward in a way, because the town it's rebuilding itself, it's rebirthing its way, to introduce these circular plans to these people and introduce them in ways that it helps their community, it helps their home and their family feel more connected and stronger together, while also being very the benefits, just because if it's the circular structure, it's more energy efficient, and introducing these ideas to them for people who really want to see a change, I think is most important, because not everyone's going to need to change, and that's okay. I don't want to push anything onto anybody, but keeping in mind people who want to see change and people who want to see a better future, this is for them.
Hi, Advika. I would just say wow after that presentation. I mean, you've engaged local municipalities as well as property developers. Those are two scary groups and seem to have really made inroads and had an impact on their thinking, which is incredible. And I guess my first question to you is, I'm assuming you are on the path to architectural school.
Yes, that's
Right.
the dream.
You seem, I don't think it's going to be a very much a reality for looking at this. Um, so and I'm like, I won't get into it now, but you have a really amazing grasp on building as well as just the thought process around architecture and what architecture and the future of the home really requires today. Real specific question. I mean, I'm very fascinated by circular structures and that way of living. I think it's a really interesting and interesting in how it sort of changes a lot of our assumptions. How are you, just this is real specific, but how are you thinking of light getting into the central nucleus of the home? What are the natural light sources like?
That's really interesting. So for kind of what I envisioned in my head and kind of what, if you remember from my 3D model, the I would like to see a more very vibrant kind of lots of windows. I think that's the main kind of thing that we need, lots and lots of windows around the perimeter, but also introducing skylights to kind of shine in on the home and things like that. And I guess you're right. Circular homes have a different way of lighting than rectangular homes, just because of its disposition, and there'll be things that are darker in the center. But just including light in every aspect. So the walls, so lots more windows around the walls, and I think more in proportion than rectangular houses, and also skylights would be really, really helpful. And I think skylights are just really a great way to be more connected with the world around us.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Liz here. I'm just so I'll echo how Omar said it. Wow, I'm so impressed by the work itself, the concept behind it, your ambition to tackle it in the way that you did, but also your presentation style is just phenomenal. So congratulations just across the board on all of it. Um, I I think a lot about raw materials and sort of what raw materials are available. And you talked about locally sourced materials is how I think you were talking about it. And I love the way you're thinking about it in these two ways. Um, and wondered if you had considered at all, even though you're so deeply connected to the way that you were doing this project in this community, whether the framework that you've developed really is portable to another community in the way that you've designed it. To me, it seemed like you can take locally sourced materials and port it to a different community. The way that you've approached your framework of engaging with the policymakers, the mayor, the alliance, and bring it elsewhere. Have you, in your conversations, talked with any other communities outside of your own to either inform your process or been interested in doing that outside of this community?
So, I think kind of in like the short kind of time frame that I had, I really wanted to focus on Chimney Rock. So I haven't had the chance to interact with other communities, but like I kind of talked about in my design, I want this framework of thinking to be kind of applied for other either mountain communities or other disaster impact communities, because I think that's a very urgent topic right now, and a lot of types of people, as I talked about, 1 billion people live in mountain communities right now. And it's an urgent topic that needs a lot of focus. And so that's why I kind of want, when we're rebuilding communities that have been hurt, to be thought of in this way. And obviously, I think the specific details of like the my work, like the red clay and all of this, is really, it's specific to the area. It's specific to the Smoky Mountains, to North Carolina. So if this were to be applied in other regions, I think additional research would need to be conducted about what is vernacular to them and what is home for them. Because that changes for a lot of people, and I would never want to misrepresent another community, just blanketing over with my design. So I would, if it needs to be transferred to another community, I think kind of going through again the same research process, understanding what materials are available to them, what is their indigenous and colonial, and what is their history, basically, contacting again with like lawmakers and their community leaders, understanding their positionality, I think would all go again into this process of reworking a community for the better.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hi, Advika. That was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. And again, I'm just so impressed by your ability to engage with these different groups, to understand, the stakeholders, what they want, and keep everybody's, interests at heart, while you're working on this. And I found it, interesting when you said, you don't want to tell people like what to do, that you want to give them that choice. But then I started thinking about, yeah, in terms of the form, you can give them the choice, but wouldn't it be interesting and maybe create a continuity if, even if a family selected, the A-frame shape that they're used to, if the plan required that they utilize the materials that you're recommending, from the earth and in the way that you're recommending, so that there's like a continuity of material, but a change in form based on the form that people prefer or feel comfortable with. And that would, I think, make it have like a feeling to the community, regardless of the shape of the home, right? Using the same materials and construction techniques could be very cool, very cool way to add a continuity. And I like that you kept that in mind, that you didn't want to just impose one particular form. I think that was very wise. And just again, like a level of sophistication in your presentation that I really appreciated and enjoyed. So thank you.
Thank you. I love that.
Congrats on this presentation. I echo everything that everyone has already said. I think something that really stood out to me about your project was that it seems like the basis of your process was a definition of community that was not only about this present community that lived in this area and what they're going through now, but also considering the history of that place, and then also that concept of the 7 generation impact. And I think that sort of view of what community is, seeing it as the future and the past and the present, is just I think it's just a beautiful sort of design approach to take to any project that is impacting a community, and it's something that's so scalable and important. And yeah, it's just such a thorough, beautifully researched project. It's really hard to come up with any every stone's been turned, like we said with some of these other works today. But I was curious about thinking of this specific view of community and how that could transform a view of home, and like which pieces of someone's home speak to them as this is what defines the idea of home for them. And I was curious if you've thought of bringing this design to individuals in that community, of just having maybe even a creative way for people to interact with your design and iterate on their own, of like what would be something from their previous home or their idea of what would make that structure a home that they could bring to your design, as a way to kind of learn about this framework that you've created, and also learn from the community what what is that balance of bringing in the old and the new. And yeah, just an idea, but such a beautiful, beautiful project, and just so well researched. And the way that you talk about these ideas is yeah, just thorough, thoughtful, and lovely. So congrats.
Thank you so much. I also love that idea of making it a little more individualistic in its terms of past. And if this were to be implemented, community feedback would be loved through this process. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Advika, for an absolutely dynamic and thoughtful presentation. I'd like to take a moment now to invite all the finalists back on camera for a big round of applause for everyone.
Congrats all, it was great.
And I think I speak for all of us here at Cooper Hewitt who've worked with you when I say that it's been so inspiring to see the creativity, the innovation, and really the heart that you've brought to these designs. You should be so proud of your work, and I do not envy the judges in making this decision today. But that is what they will have to do next. So we're going to take a short break now, and then when we return, our judges will announce the winner of the 2025 National High School Design Competition. Hey, everybody, I think we are back. So I'm going to welcome Maria to share the judge's decision.
Hi, everyone. We're coming back from a robust discussion on the finalists. We had 3 incredible presentations by Advika Kala, by Erin Hong, and by Jazmin Abasto-Ruggeri. And we were all very impressed by the 3 projects, I have to say. And we wanted to discuss a little bit and let you know what our thinking was, and then we'll go ahead and we'll announce the winner. But first, what we wanted to do, and I represent all of my judges here as well, I'll be trying to summarize our discussion and use the praise and the words that they used as well. We wanted to really commend all 3 of you for the presentations and the projects that you put forth. You are already thinking as designers. All 3 of you is something that came up and that we clearly saw in both the way that that you're utilizing your design thinking on the topics that you chose, but also on the way that you presented and you communicated your ideas. You touched upon a variety of topics that are very much of the time. We've discussed loneliness and isolation in the medical environment. We've talked about suburban loneliness and isolation as well. And we've talked about the climate crisis and resilience and rebuilding in areas where the climate crisis is more acute. So all of those topics, are absolutely topics of the times, and you're representing your communities in ways that were very on point and very, very impressive. All 3 of you also also started from very personal experiences. I think the best ideas always come from that deep connection to the topic that you're talking about, right? So all three of you also did that. So ultimately, you made our lives very difficult right now in the conversation that we had to have. I think all three of your projects have a future, and this group, and I know the judges, myself, will help find the future for those projects. There's no question. But ultimately, we decided that the winner of the 2025 National High School Design Competition is Advika Kala for your project, Advika, on the Resilient Home. Congratulations to you. It was really an excellent project. You are talking about one of the most pressing topics of our times, resilience, reconstruction in areas that needed based on natural disasters. And you presented a process that we were impressed by. You connected with policymakers, with local leaders, in a very complex environment. And we wanted to make sure to praise you for that, because we thought that your product was your process, Advika, and that your strength and sort of like magical power in the way that you presented your process was also the way that you were able to communicate it with strength, but with empathy. And those two things need to go hand in hand. So we recognize that there's this big role that you described in your process of the designer as a convener. And I think it was one of my fellow judges who said, I think, Jules, you said this, that it's important for us and important for our discussion was the fact that you represented this idea that designers are not just making things, but convening people that need to come together from different disciplines. And sometimes those people don't even want to come together to work around a complex problem. But we were very impressed by that part of your presentation as you continue to refine the actual design and process of what your project represents. So those are some of the thoughts that we discussed around your project. But I really want to commend Erin as well for your process. You're tackling an incredibly important aspect of what life in America is and life in American suburbia is. Your research was really good, Erin. We all agreed that we wanted to even know more about that research, and because you had really great kernels of information there. The way you presented your project was also really visually appealing and was in character with the kind of project that you were presenting, which is not always the case, right? But your design and the project of your character really went together. And I think you were really thinking of like really large global universal problems, but bringing them down to your community with very one-on-one experiences that you've had and you've discussed. So congratulations on doing that, because it was very effective. And then Jazmin, we loved your project very, very much. You have a product to sell. It's ready to launch. And you also convened a lot of different stakeholders in an industry that is not easy. So whether we're talking about the urban scale or the scale of the medical community and the medical healthcare system in the United States, you navigated that as well and brought a lot of different people together to ultimately end with this product that, as you saw in our discussion, we're all eager to help you push in different ways and different directions. So you can expect some messages from the judges, I know, because of that. But again, your empathy and the care of your design was clear and showed through the whole project. So I want to open it for a second to any of the other judges if they want to say something. And again, just underline this idea that the three of you really have a future in design, whether that's the path you're taking or not. But the way you're thinking, I think, gives me hope in how we are tackling problems nowadays. So with that, I'll open it up to other judges if anyone else wants to add anything to these remarks.
I would just add all three of these projects and presentations were so inspiring. You're working in the way that you need to latch onto and continue to for your careers as designers. You're all going to be very successful designers if you choose to take that path. What I was thinking about a lot as you were sharing your projects is that I'm many years into my career. you're designing into a problem and a need. And very easily, once you start your careers, you can start designing into a category. You can start designing without really thinking about a true human need for that thing. So keep on that path. Remind yourselves of that. At Design Within Reach, we have a design ethos that defines modern design as being a way of thinking. Modern as a mindset. And part of our ethos is this idea that modern designers need to confront the challenges of our times and embody the hopes of our future. So then all three of you managed to do that in meaningful ways in your project. So thank you for a very inspiring Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I'll just echo so many things that have been said about how inspiring the work was. Congratulations to all three of you. What I've been thinking about and what I was delighted to see was the difference between and among the definition of home that you all presented and found in it something that was for you and for the community, but then broadened it to the audiences that you're intending to serve. And it made me think differently about the definition of home and the definition of community. And that, to Omar's point, is the mark of a designer, should you choose to take that path. Something that I often say to students at the graduate level is, what is it that you are uniquely positioned to do when you find the space, that gap that you want to fill? What is it, though, that you can only do and you're only qualified and uniquely positioned to do? And it feels like you each found that for yourself and combined it with what's powerful about home for you and what's important about it to the community. And so it's just been such an inspiration to see. So thanks for helping me see home differently today. It's been a joy.
Yeah, I'll just say thank you so much for such inspiring presentations. And I was just very impressed with the depth of thinking and research and empathy for the people that you're trying to serve, and sharing your process and the stories behind the work, I think was very inspirational to me. Tough decision for all of us. And if I can be of any help to any of you, please feel free to reach out.
I just wanted to add to all of the things everyone's been saying. I'm just blown away by the presentations of the work, obviously the projects themselves, the processes that you've all gone through and the iterations, the research. But I think as a designer, it was at least somewhat of a surprise to me, starting a professional career in design, how much of that work really is in storytelling and finding a way to share your complex ideas and your process. And that is such a huge part of the work of a designer. And you all did such an amazing job of that and taking us from this very personal place and this idea of your community, your home, or your experience through all of these technical details of your work. And so I was just amazing level of detail and design with each individual slide of these presentations. And I think also all of these projects, to me, in a way, like felt like a gift to, and I'm sure maybe in your processes, the way that you at different times were thinking of that community or an individual in the community that your project served. And I've found that in my own design work, my favorite projects I've done have been gifts in a way for people that I care about, or keeping them in mind and kind of thinking of the work as a gift. And that's just something that came through in all of these projects that was really inspiring to see. Yeah, just amazed, and just like a wonderful way to spend the afternoon. I feel so inspired by the work. So thank you all.
Thank you. Well, I think with that, we're going to wrap up our program for today. I will ask the judges and the finalists to stay behind for a quick moment, but we'll say goodbye to everybody else. We hope that you'll come to the museum at some point and we'll see you here live, and that you'll continue to follow the programs that we do, as well as the work of Advika and Erin and Jazmin as well. Congratulations again to all three of you. Congratulations to Advika, and thank you everybody for joining on your Sunday afternoon. We'll see you soon at the museum. Thanks.